Welcome to today's episode of Financial Fluency. Today I have Kimberly Patrick, who is a sales coach, recruiter, real estate investor, and the author of the new forthcoming book, Dare to Be More. Hi, Kimberly. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So are you in Texas? Is that right?
I am. I'm in Austin, Texas.
Yeah, I'm in Arizona. So we're both probably experiencing a lot of summer heat right now, I think.
Yes, it's a desert.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I am really interested in this really interesting intersection of different companies and jobs that you have in your title. Can you take me back in time with how you got started with all this? And then we'll kind of like come up to your present and talk about what you're doing now.
Sure. Yeah. So let's see. Well, I grew up in a very entrepreneurial family. It kind of bypassed my parents. I watched my parents work for other people, but along the way, I saw other entrepreneurs in my family, and I was around my grandparents a lot, and I knew that was the lifestyle I wanted. I was able to spend lots of time with them. They lived in a resort town on the water. They had a boat, so there was a lot of freedom there. And I knew from a really young age that I wanted that.
What did your grandparents do?
They had a commercial plumbing and heating company.
So they had a lot of employees under them?
I remember there was a point where they had a decent number and they had a huge building, but then at some point my grandfather was getting older and they downsized. So they kind of went back and forth with employees and then just them.
Mm-hmm. Well, interesting. What did you learn from watching them?
Oh my gosh, I learned so much, how to run a family business, it was the cutest thing. My grandmother would answer the phones and she would send the calls, which were most of the time an emergency, right? It was a resort town. It was middle of summer and somebody's air conditioning wasn't working in a high-rise building, or maybe their toilet was leaking, and so there were a lot of times where my grandfather had to get up and leave the dinner table because somebody's toilet was leaking and it was going to flood their whole house. And it was, we're talking commercial condo buildings, restaurants, stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so I loved watching them, their quality of life and their relationship and how they just spent time together and how they helped each other in the business. I just thought that was the cutest thing.
That's nice. Why do you think your parents decided not to follow suit?
Well, I think if you asked them, if they were here talking about it, they would have a different, account for that, and entrepreneur, when you're an entrepreneur, right? It's like this. Well, I remember the stuff like this and my parents remember the stuff like this.
Well, I guess when it's your parents jumping up and leaving the dinner table to go fix toilets, it's different than your grandparents doing it. 'Cause it probably affects, daily life a bit more.
Yeah. So they didn't like that and they knew they didn't want that. And, the headache that goes with it and the highs and the lows, which essentially it's kind of been my life as an entrepreneur. Not every business that I've had succeeds, but the mountains keep you going.
Mm-hmm. So what was your first business that you did?
Yeah. So my first business was a multi-level marketing company. I did Mary Kay.
Okay.
Right as I was starting college. Yeah.
I feel like that is, for a lot of women, something like that is a start, before you get the confidence to create your own product or service. I've met a lot of women who their first stepping stone was Avon or Mary Kay or, one of these things that teach you how to sell something first. Because so many entrepreneurs, if they jump in with their passion project or idea and no sales experience, yours truly, and a lot of other people, that sales is so hard to learn.
Mm-hmm.
So that totally makes sense to start with it. You have a team and they help you and they get you started, right? What was your experience like doing that?
Yeah, it was different than looking back. I would have thought that it would have been different, and I would have loved to say that it helped me get to where I am now, but it wasn't really successful.
Okay.
My early sales memories before that were in high school. We would have these I always played sports and I went to a small private school. But we would have these competitions where, I put together this whole thing and we made these recipe books, right? And we put cute little kids recipes in it. And then their families bought them like crazy. And so I was kind of the running person behind all of that. So that was a sales success. And then every time we would sell wrapping paper sales or anything like that, I was out there beating the pavement in my neighborhoods, and I was going to be the top person.
Well,
So
that's good. So
yeah.
after Mary Kay, so Mary Kay was while you were in college. Then what happened?
I didn't do Mary Kay very long. Like I basically got sucked in. I loved the team. They were super supportive, but I didn't really know what I was doing too much. I loved makeup and stuff like that. But I think multi-level marketing was kind of challenging for me because I have always been somebody that sells better to business owners than to consumers. That's just what I like. And I've learned that about myself over the years because I have engaged in several multi-level marketing companies over the years. And they're like, some of them can be super successful and then it just like grows stagnant because after you've reached your warm market and stuff like that. And the other thing about me is like, I like to create things from scratch. So there was always just a disconnect there with me and multi-level marketing companies. So yeah, Mary Kay, I spent, I don't know, $550 on a credit card. Got a bunch of product. I kept having open houses. Nobody was coming. So it wasn't my most successful thing that I've done.
What did you study in college?
So I moved around a little bit. I started at a private school in South Carolina, and my major was early childhood education. And then I took a lot of psychology classes. So that was my minor. And then I moved back to Maryland after 2 years. And I went back and I finished and got a bachelor's in social work, actually, with a minor in psychology. So then after that, I ended up getting an MBA, kind of was like, did social work for a little bit through graduating college and a year after. And then I'm like, no way, I don't want to do this anymore. So
it's a hard career path, social work.
It was really hard. Yes. And I'm like an empath. So I take on everything from other people. And plus I was really young and I had some crazy cases like child molester dads that I was going to court against and all kinds of stuff like that. It was just too much.
So then what happened after you left?
So I got my MBA and I got into sales and recruiting from there while I was working on my MBA. Yeah.
Were you working for a company at that time?
I did. Yeah. Kind of my ex-husband, we're divorced now, but we started some businesses together. But my first sales job was like in DC, and I went in for this interview. I will never forget because I had been doing social work before. And so I had no idea how to sell. So I go in for this interview. They sit me in like this boardroom where everybody is sitting around the table, and they have me pick up the phone and make a sales call, which I had never really done. Yeah. And then like nobody said anything. It was like, poker faces. And then they go and talk.
Did they sell? Did they buy?
I did. No, it wasn't like a real person. It was like another, but I didn't know that at the time, Okay. I didn't know that it was somebody within the company. And then they left the room and they came back in and they offered me the job. So I guess I did okay. I don't know.
Wow. That's an interesting tactic to put you on the spot so immediately in selling. Yeah.
Yeah. It was pretty rough. I've never done that to anybody that I've hired.
So in this company with recruiting, is that where you learned more?
Well, yeah. So this company, they had an online job board. So my job at the time that I was hired for was to sell accounting and finance job postings to companies, like to their HR heads. And so we also had a recruiting firm, and the recruiting firm did a lot of tech recruiting. And so here I am sitting in there making like 100+ calls a day. The recruiting side of things, like they had candidates coming in and they were interviewing them and they were taking clients to lunch. And my friend in recruiting was like earning triple what, my on-target earnings were. So I was like, I want to be a recruiter. And then I've been in it ever since.
So you were working for a company then. Are you, as a recruiter right now, are you working for a company or is it your own recruiting business?
I have my own. Yeah, this is my third recruiting startup. So I learned a little bit, moved back to the Eastern Shore of Maryland from the DC area. It was about 2.5 hours. So then I started my first recruiting firm then, and I knew just a little bit.
So how's it been going?
Good. Well, that was my first one. We built it up and the market tanked in 2008, with the recession. And then all of our clients were laying off instead of hiring. And so that was like the first one, but we had a good run for a couple years.
Yeah, that was a hard time in a lot of industries, but I can imagine recruiting. Yeah, everyone was laying off. Nobody was hiring. So what did you do when that happened? Did you close up shop for a while?
I kind of hung in there a little bit. We tried to revive it. I was also going through a lot of personal stuff at the time. my husband at the time had kind of decided he didn't want to be married anymore and was running around on me and all kinds of stuff like that. And so those things were happening at the same time. So I was it was a good time for me to take some, personal assessments and take some time away and like heal and travel. And there were some books that came out then that were really popular. And I was just like reading and traveling with my friends and doing yoga and working out and, all of that stuff. And so then I held on to the recruiting business and I moved back to the DC area. And at the time I started, I got certified as a personal trainer to kind of supplement my income, right? Because then I could make like an hourly wage versus I don't know if you know how recruiting works, but there are two kinds of recruiters. There's somebody that does contingency search, and then there's somebody that does retained search. Retained search, you get a portion of the fee up front and throughout the process. And then at the end, you get like the final payment. Contingency search, which is what I had at that time, that's what I had been doing for those several years. You don't get a fee unless you place somebody. And then it's usually a pretty big fee, right? Mm-hmm. So imagine with a market where nobody was hiring and all of that was very stressful. So I got certified as a personal trainer and I picked up some clients, opened up a gym in the DC area and started training out of that. And I had a couple, with a partner. Yeah. And then I had a couple, it was like a personal training gym. It wasn't like a, big box gym or anything like that. Mm-hmm. And then I had a couple clients that were females that wanted to lose a bunch of weight that I would go to. And then this kind of started my second recruiting business. In the DC area, there's a lot of like government contracting that goes on. And so I got hooked up with some guys. They were like, their background was not recruiting. It was like, they were technical guys. They were like network engineers and stuff. They were launching businesses and they needed help recruiting. And so then I took two of them on as clients and they started like outsourcing all of that to me. So, yeah.
And is that the recruiting business that you still have? Or
no, that's the second one. Yep.
Okay.
So did that for a little while, been in Texas for 4 years. And I started this business pretty much when I moved here.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And the sales coaching is on the side of the recruiting. Is that right?
Yeah. So in 2010, I got certified as a coach and I worked with a lot of entrepreneurs in the DC area, mostly men. But, 2 years ago, I had my daughter and I had kind of gotten out of that a little bit. And I just felt like the pull to get back into that. I felt like there are so many women that I could help, especially moms, right? Who like want to have freedom and flexibility, who don't want to be stuck in a 9-to-5 for somebody else and commuting and all of that. And so that's kind of where that came from.
Well, I think for a lot of women, how I started my audience and everything, I'm a special needs mom. And because I had special needs kids and difficult pregnancies, I could not return to the job I had before. So a lot of us, maybe it's aging parents that have to be cared for, or special needs kids, or a spouse who's been injured, or military injury or something like that. There are so many women who end up leaving traditional employment and want to get started in this, but so many of us have no sales training or experience. And that you may have like a passion, you may have a great product or a great service, but if you don't know how to sell, it's really hard. And do I was talking to someone earlier today who told me that they thought that salespeople were born, not made, basically. And I was like, what's your opinion on people learning how to sell?
Yeah, I would say I kind of agree with that.
Really?
Yeah, I think people can learn.
For those of us who feel like we aren't born salespeople.
You can learn to sell, but I'm kind of one of those people that believes that you should work within your gifts, because if you're like trying to do something that you feel like you're like hitting a wall constantly, right? Then maybe there's something else that you need to be doing that's more in line with your gifts. And so like if you're building a company and sales isn't your thing, like hire somebody who's good at it.
So what if you're a solopreneur?
Well, if you're a solopreneur, you're going to have to do aspects of different things, I know what that's like because I've been from 1 to 12 and back down and up and down and all of that. So I know what that's like. But I think that there's a couple things that you could do. If you're a solopreneur, you could you could get like a sales intern, you could get a sales assistant, you could get somebody to help you with stuff like that.
Well, as a sales coach, what do you do to help women?
Yeah. So I recently launched a program called Smart Selling. And it's a 10 to 12 week intensive, pretty hands-on course with me, where we go from everything from identifying your ideal client, like figuring out like exactly what that looks like, to building out a marketing plan, sales strategies. If you're doing an online business, we do sales funnels and freebies and help start to drive traffic. If you're doing that's more like B2C, business to consumer. If you're selling business to business or B2B, then we do more things with like LinkedIn and building campaigns, and then, just moving people through the process of building those out. And then we even take it as far as closing deals.
So on the show, I like to always be able to have a few tips that, takeaways that anyone listening or reading the show notes can try out and see kind of what your system is like. Would you have a few tips for women in particular, because the audience is female for this show, that could help get them started? Like if they are trying to work from home, trying to be online, like what are, top 3 things to start, then move them towards being ready for what you do?
Yes. So you need to, first of all, you need to figure out who your ideal client is and where they hang out, right? So if they are, if they're a consumer, say you want to start a coaching business, then you're probably going to be able to find, like, say, moms as your target audience. You can find them in mom groups in Facebook. So join a bunch of Facebook groups, like literally max those groups out. I know it's like crazy because you get all these notifications, but it really works. And just start engaging, just start getting to know people. Just, you can ask if you can add people as friends, and just start conversations with them. Hey, I'd love to learn more about you and your business. What are you up to? Or you and your family, And so that's been like really helpful for growing that business. And I'm actually doing a beta program right now, a 4-week beta program, and I have 20 women in it. And we just kicked off this week, and we're working through that. And so they've been doing that, and it's been really successful. So that's the first thing that I'm having them do in this beta program. The second thing that I'm having them do is they are building out like freebies, right? So if you're this works if you're selling to a consumer. Selling to business, I would go with a completely different strategy, right? And that would be around like LinkedIn and email campaigns to reach those decision makers and stuff like that. But if you're selling to a consumer, you want to get in front of them on Facebook. You want to make sure they're the ideal client, and then you want to develop a freebie that's going to take them in, right? So like my freebie is, we just made a new one called How To, like my how-to guide on how I built a 6-figure business while nursing a baby. So that's mine, right? So we're all over Facebook. It's we're running some ads for very, very low cost. Do not spend a lot of money on ads. You don't have to. But we're all over groups. And so people are starting to ask what we do. We do some lead generation, and we'll post like a blurb like, oh my gosh, who wants my how-to guide of how I built a 6-figure business in within a year of having a baby, or while nursing a baby, or however we phrase it, because we switch it up. And then put your favorite emoji below. And so, I mean, it's some of these groups, like I could show you like pictures of them, like 1,000, we get 1,000 comments sometimes on these posts in really big groups. Wow. So then everybody gets, we send them a link once they post, once they respond, we send them a link to it. They go to our freebie page, they download the freebie, and then they immediately get put in our sales funnel. And so they're in our email list, and we can like resell to them. And so I think that stuff is huge. As far as like my third thing that I would give you is the technologies that you use are really important, and you can find things that are not super expensive. Like if you don't have a big email list, you can use ActiveCampaign is my favorite so far.
That's nice.
You do? I think it's so easy to use, and I love how like it just lays out the sales funnel feature for you. Like I love that.
Uh-oh. I think the internet's having a blip. Are you still there, Kimberly?
I think my internet went out. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay. I was wondering if it was mine. I was just trying to check things. I'm like, what's going on? Oh, for some reason.
No, I think it's mine because I have you on my phone now because my internet's down.
Okay. It's going all narrow. Oh, wait.
So we might be back on. Okay, let me get back on there.
Okay. See, that's the kind of thing I will actually cut out.
Okay.
Yay. Okay, we're back. So we had just hit point 3.
Yes. So point 3 is the technology. So you want to be using good technology, but you don't have to spend a ton of money on it right now in the beginning, right? Mm-hmm. So like we use ActiveCampaign. We're also using Instapage for our landing pages.
Okay. I didn't know that one. I was thinking, is this an Instagram thing I haven't heard about? But Instapage. Okay, cool.
Yeah, Instapage. Yeah. So we're using Instapage, obviously the social media channels, and then we backlink things to PayPal. Trying to think what else we're using. And we use Zoom for calls.
I love Zoom. So easy.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a good way to get up and running is you figure out your ideal client. That was number 1, right? And then number 2 was go into the Facebook groups and connect with ideal clients, find them and offer them a freebie.
Yeah. And some people do strategy calls. Some people do like like I was referring to. So just find what works for you. I started doing strategy calls, but then I think that what we're doing right now is working a lot better.
Probably less time consuming if you're able to send them something they can consume in their own time too. Though there are people like these calls, I mean, I do love connecting with people too. So I think there are times when it just seems like it's such a commitment to get on a call with someone when you're not sure. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that it totally can be. And then I hadn't been charging for them, but I'm starting to because it would be like 50-50 whether people would show up or not.
Yeah. So if they actually pay, then they're going to show up for the most part. And if they don't, then they've already paid. So yeah. Yeah.
I've never had somebody somebody pay and either completely just not show up or not reschedule. They're more committed and invested. So
yeah, that's true. Okay. So once they either do the strategy call or the freebie, then you put them into your email.
They automatically get in to the funnel. So yes. And then they go through they get a series of follow-up emails about different things.
Okay. So for point 3, we have the tech that you talked about, but in order to make the tech work, there needs to be some sort of follow-up, some funnel of some kind. So
ActiveCampaign, you're setting them up. I don't know if you use the funnel feature, but we do, and we love it.
Mm-hmm. So step 3 would lead into writing a series of emails that leads them to an offer or a product.
Yes.
Okay. I think that's a very succinct 3-step process for the most part there. So if someone does this stuff and it's not working, what do you do to help them? If they're like, I'm offering my freebie, nobody's really taking me up on it.
We take a look at where they're posting. What they're posting is a really big thing. One of the things that my team is so good at is converting because, converting is kind of a sales skill, but we even call it converting and recruiting because we'll get a job from a client and then we'll go have to reach out to candidates about it, potentials that they're not looking at all. Right. Mm-hmm. And so that messaging, even in that, is so important because we're trying to convert them, just like if you're converting a potential client. Mm-hmm. So the messaging is really important. That can make or break things. And so we'll just tweak that if we need to. We'll join different groups. We'll post in different groups. We just get creative.
Is your main focus in Facebook?
You know what? For my coaching business, my main focus is on Facebook, even though I have profiles, with pretty much all of them. But on the recruiting business, it's LinkedIn.
That makes sense because then you've got professionals. So for recruiting, are you a headhunter?
I guess I am. That's an old school term for it, but yeah.
I haven't heard it used for a while, but that's why I just suddenly thought so you actively go and pursue people that aren't necessarily looking for jobs, but have the skills and qualifications that would translate well into the job.
Yes.
That's a really interesting thing. And I noticed on your, on the bio that I have, you mentioned passive talent.
Yes.
What is passive talent? What does that mean?
So passive talent is it's people who are not looking,
Oh,
right?
okay.
They're not. So active talent would be their resumes on Indeed or Monster, right?
Okay.
Or they applied for a position we have posted. Passive is they've got the skills you can see on their LinkedIn profile, or somebody refers us to them, but we don't really know if they're looking or not. And so it's just reaching out to them, like calling and emailing, trying to catch them on the phone and say, hey, I've got this great opportunity. Wanted to run it by you to see if you could have an interest, or if not, maybe you know someone. And 9 times out of 10, this has changed a lot over the last 10 years in recruiting, by the way, because I feel like we almost live in a time where everybody's always open. But it used to not be like that.
Yeah. I think before the recession, when there were so many layoffs, I think that was when everyone started realizing actually there is no job security.
Yeah.
I could be laid off from a company I've worked for 20 years, just like that. So
yeah. Gone are the days where like our parents, worked at, like my mom worked at for the state for like 30 years, or my father-in-law worked at IBM for that long. Like that doesn't really happen that much anymore. So.
Yeah, few people get company pensions. If you're not taking care of, and even like healthcare, that's changed so much. So many places don't offer benefits anymore, health benefits. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Or if they do offer them, they're like really high deductibles, and that's tough too.
Mm-hmm. So it's interesting looking at your business model, which we haven't completely gone through all of your talents yet. So just these two, you've got both the entrepreneur side with sales coaching, and then you've got the corporate side with recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
So you're kind of on both sides of there. I'm sure you get to see a lot of changes in both industries.
Oh yes, for sure.
But you're also a real estate investor and an author. So let's quick hop over to those before we wrap up. So tell me about how you got into real estate investing and what that's been like for you.
Yeah. So when I was in Maryland, my ex-husband, his family had like tons and tons of land. And he was we lived on, think of just like farmland, like you're in DC or you're in Baltimore, and there's like farmland for like 2 hours, and then small towns and beach, right? So all of these people were starting to move because the quality of life was a lot better. It was close to the beach. The cost of living was a lot less. And so they had all this land, and he was actually a land surveyor. And I just went to him and was like, this is an opportunity for us. We should totally like do this. And he was like, well, I was thinking about starting a landscaping business. And I was like, you don't want to cut people's lawns. Like we should like develop real estate. And so he told his grandparents, and they were like, okay, like put together a PowerPoint thing. And at the time I was finishing up my MBA. And so I was recently working on some similar projects. And so I made it like my project for one of my classes. And so then like I put together this PowerPoint presentation showing them like what we could do and the revenue that could be made off of it and all of that. And they came over like on Sunday after church for dinner, and we showed it to them, and they were like, okay, we're in. So then they just started like giving us property to develop.
Wow. So were you actually building homes and selling the homes on them, or were you doing
Not so much in that business? We were more like developing land. We were starting to do a little bit of that, but some of the land that we would acquire from auctions like already had houses on it, and then we would rent them out.
Okay.
So it was more like building and developing.
And renting?
Renting because how things worked up there is you had auctioneers, and they would hold an auction. And so you could end up with like a really huge plat of land that maybe had 2 houses on it, and then 20 acres you could develop into other houses. So then sometimes you would do that, or, maybe it would just be like that auction would just be like one house, and so it was kind of a little bit of everything.
So did you develop some of the grandparents' land as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. How did that go?
Well, it went really well. And then the market tanked, 2008, around the same time that we started like the divorce process. And so that was like really messy.
Mm-hmm. So are you completely disassociated from all those early investments?
I still have one piece of land, a couple acres on a highway up in Maryland that I've just been sitting on for over 10 years.
Oh, yeah. Wow. So since then, what have you done with real estate?
So since then, I had one house that I made a college rental that was in Maryland, and I just kept that, and then I have the land just sitting there. And then I fixed up a house in the DC area and lived there. That was like a buy and hold strategy. And then I really got out of it after 2008 for a while and just focused on other stuff because I just got burned so bad with the market crashing. But recently just started again here in Austin. And right now we have a house for sale. Yeah. That we just finished. I'm in that business with a partner.
Well, that's exciting. Austin's such a nice town. Actually, my little brother lives there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I'll probably be coming to visit sometime. Maybe we could hang out.
We should totally. Yes, you should let me know.
Okay, cool. But yeah, I feel like there's a really kind of vibrant scene there with food and entertainment and music. It seems like a really nice place to live.
It is a really nice place to live. I know. I wish I took time to do that stuff more, but I'm more of like a, outdoorsy, like go to the pool, take the kids to the pool, we go to Schlitterbahn, we do stuff like that. We don't go downtown a whole lot unless I'm like, I host events downtown. So like if I'm doing an event, I'll go downtown, but I don't really.
Which businesses are the events part of?
Well, it's not really a business per se. So for over 3 years, I was the chapter director of Startup Grind Austin. I don't know if you're familiar with Startup Grind, but so every month we would have an event at a co-working space downtown, and I would interview a local entrepreneur who had traction, or a VC, or some type of investor in front of an audience, and we would do like food and stuff like that. And then I just got out of that because I am kicking off a chapter of female founders, it's called. So you can tell that my passion is very much around like females and moms and things like that. And so this is going to be like a lunch thing. We're kicking off August 23rd at Capital Factory here, which is a co-working space. And it'll be a lunch from 11 to 1. And I'm interviewing a friend of mine who has a business. She is a professional matchmaker. So.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. So
well, you have oh my gosh, you have so many things going on.
I know.
That's crazy. A lot.
Yeah.
Of stuff. And then you also just finished your book, right? Dare to Be More? Just
finished my book. So the thing about me that really helps me, like, because it seems like I do have a lot going on, is I am a huge delegator.
Okay.
I have interns, I have a VA, we have a nanny. I get people to help me with projects and stuff. There's no way that I could do all this without that.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. And since you're a recruiter, you probably find really good people to help you, right?
I do find good people. Yeah. I mean, so there is some turnover there because these are startups and that happens, but yes.
That's good. Do you have any advice for people who need help, who need the nanny and the interns, but haven't made that jump yet?
I do. Ask for help. Like I remember sitting there when my daughter was born. So backstory on that. And I talk about this in my book. I had a C-section and it was unplanned. I was planning a natural birth. I was just going to go to the birthing center, have this baby in a tub, and then that was going to be like the end of it. And we were going to go home and everything was going to be fine. Well, they were watching me and my fluid, like I had too much fluid and I had a big baby because my husband is 6'6" and like 280. So big baby, and I'm 5'1". You can't tell on the camera, but I'm 5'1", And so like big baby, lots of fluid. And then all of a sudden over a period of like 6 weeks, like I had zero fluid, but they said it wasn't leaking. So I don't know. I'm like, okay, explain that one to me, but nobody could ever explain it to me. So when I went in to get like a natural, they call it a Foley bulb induction, I had to go to the hospital, which wasn't planned. They were supposed to do the natural induction and then send me home. And then I would come back to the birthing center when I was like, ready to have the baby. And so they were like, you have to go to the hospital now. You have zero fluid left. And I just like burst into tears because we had to tour the hospital. Like I was not having a hospital birth. And so I had a midwife, not even a OB. And she was like, you're going to be okay. I'm going to come over there with you and we'll still do the natural induction and blah, blah, blah. So that was like a Wednesday afternoon. And my daughter was born Saturday morning at 4:30 in the morning through a C-section because it just wasn't happening.
Mm-hmm.
And so then here not only did I not plan on like what my life was going to be like bringing a baby home and how that was going to affect my business, but I also didn't plan on recovering from a major operation either. And so I was out for a good like 8 weeks. And then when I finally went back, I was like, how am I going to do all of this? And so I hired my mom to come and watch my daughter. I think at that point she was pretty much full time. There was a little girl in the neighborhood who started coming over. She wanted some babysit experience. She was like 12 when I was there. So she would come over and she would help with the baby, and she was getting good experience. And then she would like do like any house stuff that I needed, which was great.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like straighten up, help with laundry, help with dishes, whatever. And so then I was like, oh, this delegating thing could really work. And my husband started like teasing me, saying like, you just like to hire people. But I'm like, no, I'm actually onto something, you know? And so then I started, I met with a business coach who was like telling me that he hired interns. And I was like, how do you do that? And he's like, you do a revenue sharing model with them. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's great. He's like, go on internships.com, post your internship. So I did that. And over the last 2 years, internships.com.
I'm writing this down. Okay.
So over the last 2 years, we didn't talk about this, but I had when my daughter was 1, I was involved in a tech company for recruiting, trying to automate some processes. And that was the first business that I really hired interns in. And I think we had 8 interns that semester.
And you do a revenue sharing model. I did not know about this for interns.
Yeah. So they get college credit, and then you can pay them like a little bit as you can. You know, if you're a startup, then, you know, I always try to be fair and I want them to make money, but sometimes we'll use like Amex points and do gift cards and stuff. And then whatever money comes in, like they get a percentage of that, so that they're making some money, but they're also getting college credit, and they're getting, I mean, my interns have gotten like amazing experience, you know, cause you're like on the ground floor of a business, just getting exposure to all kinds of stuff. So it's really good for them in their career.
As you're saying this, my wheels are turning, because my husband, we run a record label too. And one of the things that I've always been, when we're packing boxes and sleeving records, because we want to put the most recent flyers in with all the announcements of the new releases. And we're like, oh, well, when new records come, you know, if it's a record that we haven't sold for a while, we want to put the new stuff in it. So there's always this little bit of hand labor. And I'm always like, we should get an intern to do this. But I had no idea quite how you did it. And I'm like, I'm going to go to internships.com and check it out.
The other thing, yes, do it. Oh my goodness. I've had them stuff mailers for my recruiting business, but mainly for my real estate business, because we'll try to pick up houses like before they go on the market, like somebody is late or they have a tax lien or, you know, all kinds of stuff like that, or they're getting divorced. Like we'll do mailers, and they're really good at helping with that stuff.
Are you able to target people going through those changes you were talking about, either divorces or missing payments or tax liens? How do you find that information?
There's technology out there. I mean, it's all public record, really. So you can get it, most of it, depending on where you live, you can get through the local like county, city.
I had no idea. That's so interesting.
Yeah. But there's technology out there that people use for that too.
Okay. Not that we need to go too far off on that, since most of the audience is probably mompreneurs for the most part, but that is so interesting to know.
One other thing I want to tell you about the intern thing. Do you have a local college around you?
We do. We have NAU, which is Northern Arizona University, and then we also have the community college.
Okay. So I was going to say, post on internships.com and like give it a week or so. And if you're not getting a lot of traffic or, you know, then you could also reach out to the colleges and ask them if they would like connect you with the advisor, like for the business school or whatever. Tell them you want to hire an intern and see if they'll help you.
How do you get them college credit?
So I don't know what the rules are like at that school, but they just go to their advisor and say, hey, I want to do this internship. Sometimes they do it as their like formal internship. Sometimes they do it as an elective. So they just like all of the schools are different. I'm telling you, like some of them I have to fill something out at the end of the year. Some of them I have to just write a letter at the beginning of the semester. It's all different.
That is fascinating. Okay. I love this. So, and hopefully the people listening will be interested too, because I had no idea how you get. And I remember when I was in college, lots of people went and did internships, which I didn't. I went and did other things during the summers, but that is really interesting. Cool.
Yeah, and I actually have a startup business kit program that we launched recently that covers like how to start a business and how to build it from like A to Z. So sales, there's 2 modules on sales and marketing, but there's like 10 modules total. So one is on like recruiting, one is on delegating, like it covers all of that stuff. So if anybody would be interested in that too, they can connect with me.
Awesome. Okay. And we will share all of your social media and website links in the show notes. So if anyone's listening, go to the show notes. If you're watching on YouTube, we'll put it right in the description. And thank you so much for coming and sharing all of this. You have a fascinating life, and I can't wait to read your book myself. I'm going to go.
Oh yeah. Shoot me your address and I'll send you a copy.
Okay, awesome. I review lots of books. So once you get over on Amazon, I'll shoot a review on there too.
Awesome. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you, Kimberly. It's been great talking to you.
Thank you. You too. This was great.
And maybe I'll see you in Austin when I come visit my
Yes, definitely let me know and we'll get together.
Okay, I will. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.